The kitchen in our Dallas townhouse always smelled like toasted almond creamer and ambition. Sloane Whitaker, my wife, or the person playing the role, was in leggings and a white hoodie, sunglasses propped in her hair as if the sun rose indoors just for her. She sipped a protein shake, thumb flicking through messages, that little private smile forming like a signature. "Real men don't beg," she said, barely looking up. "They accept what is." I set my mug down and answered calmly, "I'm not begging, Sloane. I'm just done auditioning. My name is Jackson Reed. I grew up in Amarillo with calloused hands and a mother who believed in receipts, not theatrics. I handle logistics, operations, contingencies, the boring spine of any business. I fall apart on no one's schedule." That morning, the dishwasher hummed. Street noise lifted and settled like a breathing city. She leaned on the counter with the poise of a woman who thought the world paid rent to stand beneath her. A text made her smile again. That same half-crescent curve I'd seen when she thought she'd pocketed a check no one else knew about. A check with my father-in-law's signature, once upon a time. Routine, the thing that looked like safety to Sloane, was my camouflage. My jogging at dawn, my black coffee, my habit of keeping the upstairs office door almost closed but never locked. All of it quiet design. She called the office the cave. She only entered if a delivery needed signing, or if she wanted to tease me for keeping ledgers like it was 1952. "Come on, Jack," she'd say. "Who still uses paper clips?" People who set traps with paper, I thought. When her father, Richard Whitaker, was 6 months from the end, he summoned me to his study. There were charcoal drawings of West Texas storms on the walls and the sort of heavy leather chair that creaked like it had opinions. He slid a folio across the desk. "Protect the family from the family," he said. "They eat their own when there's money on the table." In that folio sat the Whitaker Preservation Trust, dense, layered, armored by a legendary architect named Samuel Aldridge, a coastal recluse who drafted documents like vault doors. Richard named me co-trustee beside Sloane, not because he adored me, but because he understood I read the fine print and meant it. "You'll see it before they smell it," he told me. I didn't see the first affair. I smelled it. A cinnamon citrus cologne that wasn't mine on a silk scarf. A hotel charge with the wrong zip code. Pilates class that relocated across town, conveniently near a rooftop lounge owned by Dante Rivas, whose smile could turn apology into a sales pitch. I kept my voice calm and my calendar steady. I started bringing home routine updates to the trust for Sloane to initial. 3 pages nested between cover sheets that looked exactly the same as last quarter's. She signed while the doorbell rang. She signed while FaceTiming a friend about flowers for a gala. She signed between rep counts, smiling at me like I was cute for having hobbies. The thing about a sealed safeguard clause is that it doesn't care how anyone feels. It cares whether the steps were followed, whether the signatures are all there, whether the co-trustee, in good standing, typed the date correctly. I had followed every instruction as if I were learning a prayer in a second language. So when Sloane said, "Real men don't beg," I took one measured breath and pictured the schedule send I'd cued the previous night in Aldridge's dark conference room. The email that would, at exactly 6 a.m., initiate a sequence you couldn't talk pretty. You could only watch. She laughed again, a light sound like a champagne cork in an empty kitchen, and patted out. Upstairs, I turned the desk lamp on, warm as sunrise. The office smelled like cedar drawers and old whiskey. I opened the safe with a combination I'd never once written down, touched the cool edges of documents that looked like nothing, a stack of housekeeping. A minute past 9, the townhouse settled into that weekday hush before the city roars again. A minute past 9:14, her laughter cut off like a song when someone pulls the plug. I heard the laptop open, the tap-tap-tap of a trackpad, paper sliding from a printer, the strangled pause when a person meets a word they cannot bend. "Jackson," she called, loud and clipped. No pet names. No faux sweetness. I didn't answer. Real men, it turns out, don't have to. They act. We met at a fundraiser in Austin the year the drought broke. She wore a black dress and a smile with 6 settings, switching them on and off for donors as easily as dimmers. I wore the one suit I owned, shook hands with people who said my name like they were trying it out for membership. Sloane wanted a life you could photograph. The Whitakers were old oil made modern, philanthropy panels, curated ranch weddings, a family crest replaced by slick letterhead. I wanted a life that stood when the filter cracked. On our first Sunday together, I cooked eggs in a skillet that hissed like applause. On our second, she said, "You don't have to try so hard." We balanced for a while. I woke at 5, ran 3 miles, answered emails, watched the light climb the blinds. She slept in, posted at noon, returned 100 blue hearts. She wanted spark. I wanted stewardship. She wanted to be seen. I wanted to be counted on. Desire isn't wrong. It's just not always compatible. The first time I suspected Dante, I found a selfie taken at the rooftop lounge. Sloane's smile, an off-camera hand at her waist. Team meeting, the caption read. A week later, I drove past the lounge at midnight and saw her silhouette of the glass, head tilted that specific way she reserved for adoration. I didn't throw a scene. I started recording a history no judge and no mother could ignore. Dates, times, cards, receipts, a sequence of ordinary facts that, when placed side by side, form a photograph more honest than any taken. Then Richard called me into the study with the folio and the warning. "They'll court press you when I'm gone," he said, gesturing at the fireplace like a referee calling a play. "I've seen it twice already. They will challenge anything that slows the money down." The Whitaker Trust had an emergency preservation plan that sealed safeguard clause, drafted by Aldrich decades ago, meant for scenarios in which mismanagement threatened the core. It required meticulous process. It required a co-trustee whose filings were spotless. It required silence until it was irreversible. I flew to Aldrich's office in La Jolla a month after the fundraiser where Sloane, now firmly part of my calendar and wardrobe, had leaned in a whisper that she loved the way I noticed every detail. Aldrich's conference room was dim and solid, the kind of space designed to make people speak accurately. He was smaller than his legend, sharp at the edges, ancestor to every clause that had ever buried a knife in velvet. "You've kept impeccable records," he said, flipping through the timeline. "If you activate this, Mr. Reed, the redistribution is permanent. Not punitive in language, protective. But the effect is the same for anyone who's been spending ahead of tomorrow." "I'm not interested in theater," I said. "I'm interested in preservation." He pushed forward a single sheet with the steps, his eyes on me like searchlights. "Then follow these exactly." Back home, Sloane grew bolder. She started wearing Dante's cologne home, Citrus, always one step ahead of denial, as if daring me to call a foul. She forgot her wedding band at Pilates. She told me I'd become a spreadsheet that cooked. The cheater's revenge began before my move. Tiny humiliations designed to nick me open. Dinner with friends where she told stories that made me the punchline. A confession in which she claimed I'd been cold for months, that she had needs, that Dante listened. She cried a little. I handed her tissues and said nothing that could be edited. 2 days later, a florist delivered an arrangement big enough to shade a small dog. No card. She leaned over the peonies, smiled, went upstairs, posted a sunlit shot of stems and silk ribbon. Caption: "Loved women glow." I watched my heartbeat slow until it matched the second hand. Every few weeks, new routine updates appeared on our counter. She initialed without looking, the way people sign for packages from couriers they trust. Her brothers, Brendan and Cole, were busy using the Whitaker name as collateral for development deals that looked like art but smelled like dry rot. My job was to keep the house from flooding when no one else believed it could rain. The day I decided on the date that would appear on the manila envelope, Dante sent Sloane a voice note I heard only because she left her phone on the bathroom counter and the speaker blared. "Leave him to the caveman," he said. "You're built for penthouses." She laughed. It sounded like a coin flipping, deciding which face to show. I poured coffee, went upstairs, made the entry in the ledger, and underlined the date twice. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw a glass. I didn't become the angry husband you can discredit with 2 adjectives. I became the man who shows his receipts. The night before the email, Aldrich's office was silent as a chapel after everyone goes home. His assistant witnessed, the notary stamped, and the sound, the soft thump of the seal, wasn't loud but it was final. We scheduled the cascade for 6 a.m. Central. At that moment, custody of specific accounts would shift to charitable entities with Whitaker heritage names and neutral branding. Titles would migrate to holding companies. A predetermined slice would fund scholarships and clinics under a board I chaired. My filings had been immaculate on purpose. They didn't look like revenge. They looked like responsible stewardship, because they were. I wrote the notification with the bedside manner of a surgeon delivering facts. No adjectives. No gloating. Pursuant to Section 4, Clause 9, the Emergency Preservation Plan has been activated. Effective immediately, the kind of message that ends arguments where they prefer to begin. At 9:14 a.m., Sloane's breath hitched downstairs. She printed the email and spread it on the quartz like a crime scene photo. Harper, she barked into her phone on speaker. Harper Dale, her personal attorney, a smart woman with a calm voice and a talent for telling clients hard facts and soft phrases. Read this right now. Faint shuffling on the other end. A beat of silence. Another. Sloane, Harper's tone altered, the way a nurse's face changes when a test comes back the one way you feared. What? It's sealed. It's irrevocable. The activation looks clean. No, Sloane said through a laugh that wasn't one. Stop. You can fix this. We can file motions, Harper said, measured. But the assets are already in qualified entities with independent governance. Even an injunction won't unwind what's completed. Then unwind Jackson, she snapped. Get him to unsign it. I can't unsign what's already done. I called down at last, my voice even. And neither can you. There was a second, a true, naked second, when rage and terror wrestled across her face and left it empty. She stared at the staircase like a person choosing between running up and burning it down. By noon, Brendan and Cole were calling from office towers that had suddenly become very quiet. By 2, Sloane posted a photo of an espresso and a notebook with a caption, "Building something new. Watch this space." The comments were kind, then pointed. The DMs probably weren't. At 6:30 p.m., she appeared in my doorway with both palms pressed to the printer-wrinkled email. "You detonated our life," she said. "No," I said, turning a page and signing my name where it belonged. "I detonated a fuse you kept lighting. We could have fixed it. You want me to pretend a roof isn't leaking while you sell tickets to the view?" "You're cruel," she said. "This is punishment. This is preservation," I answered. "The difference is intent." She waited for me to lose my temper so she could frame it. I offered her stillness. She tried to bargain. I offered her the truth. She tried to threaten. I asked her to close the door when she left. She closed it. That night, I slept through for the first time in a year. If you take away a grifter's favorite mirror, they don't stop looking. They steal another. Sloane's first move was narrative. Within a week, an anonymous account posted a thread hinting that a certain controlling husband had financially entrapped his wife and her philanthropic family. The thread was tidy, weaponized with the right words, designed to catch fire. It almost did. I did nothing for 3 days. Then a reporter from a serious outlet called to verify claims. I emailed a one-page packet, timelines, board minutes, distribution charts, a letter from Richard Whitaker, dated and notarized, naming his fear of insider erosion. I also forwarded a short statement. The structure in question redirects funds to community health and scholarship initiatives in perpetuity under independent oversight. Independent audits are available. The story that ran 2 days later was dry, precise, and it ended with pictures of the first clinic renovation funded in Richard's name. The thread died without a sequel. Sloane's second move was personal. She arrived unannounced with Dante and her brothers in tow, as if we were filming a reunion show. Dante wore a jacket too tight to lift both arms without prayer. Brendan and Cole had that brittle brightness of men whose lenders had begun to speak plainly. "Undo it," Brendan said, cheeks blotched, voice sharp like a snapped ruler. "We have deals structured around those assets." "Call your lawyer," I said, not unkindly. Cole stepped forward. "You're going to cost us millions." "You did that," I said, "with your math." Sloane, to her credit, didn't look to either brother for rescue. She looked at me like there had to be a hidden door in my face if she stared long enough. "You want me to crawl?" she said quietly. "No," I said, just as quietly. "I want you to stop kicking holes in boats you're still standing in." Dante laughed in a way that was meant to earn points. Man thinks he's a banker saint. He smelled like that cinnamon citrus and the inside of a new car. Sloane flinched almost imperceptibly at his performance. A note of doubt, high and hard to hear, but there. "Leave," I said. "Please. I won't ask again." They left, but not to go home. The next day, a lawyer I didn't know filed for an emergency temporary order alleging harassment. Attached were screenshots, doctored so sloppily their metadata contradicted the timestamp. My attorney, Lena Marsh, who has hands like a pianist and cross-examines like a surgeon, filed our response with receipts, so complete the judge apologized for our time. The order was denied in 6 minutes. Denied publicly. Sloan pivoted. She tried a third approach, sentiment. A tearful live video about betrayal and control, about a woman finding her voice after being treated like a signature machine. Thousands watched. Many empathized. Comments surged. I drove to the Whitaker Fund Gala that night in a black suit. I'd had tailored the day. I accepted the chair's seat. Chandeliers cast soft halos. Bidders murmured. The room smelled like orchid centerpieces and polished wood. On the stage, a slideshow cycled through the clinic build-outs, the scholarship recipients, first-gen students holding envelopes like lanterns in their hands. Halfway through the cocktail hour, a journalist approached and asked, "Are you here to gloat?" "I'm here because clinics need roofs that don't leak and kids need books you can keep," I said. "Gloating is free and worthless." Across the room, Harper Dale stood with a flute of champagne, her eyes on me like a weather report. She crossed the floor and stopped. "You made it irreversible," she said, not accusing, stating. "I made it responsible," I said, "and transparent." "She's not well," Harper said, and there it was, the line I'd seen coming. Not a weapon. A simple, human thing. "I don't wish her harm," I said. "I wish her accountability." "There's a difference." Harper nodded once, a small concession to the part of her job that requires calling things what they are. Then she did something I didn't expect. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter Richard had written and left with her firm, to be delivered if the safeguard was ever triggered. "You were the only one who opened a manual before turning on the machine," he wrote. "If you had to pull this lever, I trust that it was the last lever left." The evening ended with a paddle raise that funded the final tranche for a mobile dental unit. As the applause rose, I felt something ease under my ribs, satisfaction without swagger, the kind that lets you walk out without looking back for permission. Sloane's last counterstrike was small and cruel. She sold my grandmother's quilt online with a caption about decluttering the past. I bought it back under a different account for triple the price and shipped it to my mother with a note. Some things we keep. The next morning, Sloane posted a picture of a quiet coffee and wrote, "Everything is content," but the likes were down and the comments were asking real questions. Dante's cologne stopped showing up on her scarves. A week later, he posted a soft launch with a different woman, captioned with a lightning bolt. "The meteor fell where meteors always do, on whatever landscape is closest." The papers finalized in the background like weather systems. Audits filed, boards seated, distributions scheduled with clockmaker rhythm. The townhouse felt bigger without her playlists bouncing off every surface. Silence settled the way honesty does. Not harsh, just unadorned. I ran at dawn, made coffee, answered emails. I kept the upstairs door slightly ajar out of habit. Some nights I ate at the counter, book open, the city breathing beyond the window. Other nights I walked to the clinic renovation site to read progress reports and talk with a foreman who insisted on calling me sir, until I finally told him, "Jackson is fine." One afternoon, weeks after the gala, Sloane texted, "Can we talk without phones recording us?" I met her in a park near the Trinity levees. No cameras, no entourage. She wore a gray sweater and yesterday's mascara. Her voice, stripped of audience, was smaller and truer. "You were right about the deals," she said, staring at the river. "Not me. They were built on fog." "I didn't enjoy being right," I said. "I wanted to hurt you," she confessed. The way people confess when the theater is closed and the real line is the only one left. "So I turned every story into a knife. And when you didn't bleed in public, I got louder." "I know." She took a breath. "What happens to me now?" "You're not destitute, Sloane," I said. "You keep the pre-marriage condo your dad gave you. Free and clear. You get a stipend from your father's personal estate that isn't tied to the trust. And if you want, there's a paid role on the clinic's community advisory board. If you show up the way the community needs, not the way an audience needs. That's charity. It's accountability with dignity," I said. "You always wanted to be seen. Try being useful." She almost smiled, but not the old way. "And us. We're finished," I said softly. We were finished when you started writing me as a villain on a stage I paid for. She nodded like someone hearing the diagnosis she'd suspected. How did I not see this coming? You did, I said, gentle. You just believe you could outrun consequences because you could make strangers clap. I was never clapping, Sloane. I was counting. Her eyes watered, not performative. She brushed a tear away like it offended her cheek. You loved me, she said. I did, I said. I still want a life for you that isn't a performance. We stood without speaking for a minute while a jogger passed and a dog barked at geese, as if language could settle ancient arguments. When she turned to leave, she looked smaller but realer, like a person meeting their own reflection without filters. The divorce was practical, almost courteous. We divided furniture and art and ghosted memories. She kept the sunburst mirror she loved. I kept the bookcase my mother and I built out of pine. When the movers left, I made a bed on the floor and slept like a man done with the worst math. Months later, the clinic's glass doors slid open for the first patients. The scholarship kids walked into freshman seminars with backpacks that didn't squeak. At a small ceremony, a nurse told me her daughter wanted to be a doctor now because she'd watched her mother's hands fix things. I thought of Richard's letter and put my palm on the cool wall of the hallway like you do on ship steel. Steady. Yes, we float. People ask if revenge felt good. They think of fireworks, noise, a victory dance. Truth. The best revenge is never a headline. It's a roof that doesn't leak, a ledger that balances, a life that doesn't require explaining. And yet, if you need a single scene, I went to a flea market one Saturday and saw Sloane from a distance at a booth selling vintage cameras. Eyes clear, hair pulled back, laughing in a way that didn't audition. She looked up, saw me, lifted 2 fingers in a small salute, not a wave. I nodded back and kept walking. Mercy is not forgetting. It's refusing to throw another match. Back home, I hung my mother's quilt on a wall where morning light could find it. I brewed coffee in the quiet. I texted Lena, Marcia, thank you, I'd been meaning to send. I replied to a student's email asking how to set up a first budget. I called the foreman about the insulation delay and heard the pride in his voice when he said, we solved it. I am Jackson Reed. I don't beg. I act. And when someone tells me real men don't fall apart, I agree, and add the part no one prints on shirt. Real men also don't build castles on fog, and they don't clap when a prettier lie asks for it. Some nights, I step into the upstairs office, turn on the desk lamp, and take a breath that smells like cedar and work done right. There's no crown in that room, no trophies, just a safe with paperwork that won't be open again, a ledger with one last line underlined twice, and a man who understands that the loudest thing in the world is a door you close once and never have to lock.